welcome to week 2 of It's in the Blood. We're not going to mess around and talk about a lot of dumb stuff to begin with today. We're going to get right into today's topic, which happens to be Deshaun Watson. This is my daughter, Alex.
I just wanted to ask you what you thought when you first heard that Deshaun Watson wanted out of Houston. Like, how did you feel about that?
I felt like organizationally they must have problems. The way that I look at the NFL, I see Deshaun Watson as a professional. I see him as a stand-up quarterback. He doesn't make a lot of waves. He's not like the Antonio Browns of the world that are constantly in the spotlight for being a troublemaker. He's a quiet professional that went out and played winning football. So if he wanted out, I felt like organizationally Houston had issues.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I agree. Uh, I mean, I don't disagree with him wanting to leave. I think not only their previous head coach, who is no longer with them. I think he made a lot of mistakes. I think you can only push a guy so far until they don't want anything to do with you anymore. And I think that's exactly what happened with Deshaun Watson. They did so many things under his nose that he had no idea about. And if you have a franchise quarterback, I think that he should be involved with major moves on your team.
Going back to last year, let's take a step back before we go forward. When the news came out that DeAndre Hopkins was going to Arizona, what do you think the mindset was in Houston to go ahead and start making these kinds of moves?
I don't think there was any logical sense put into that thought process. I could easily say that if DeAndre Hopkins is not the best wide receiver in the league, he's top three.
To go from that to what this season entailed and how it played out, Houston looked completely out of sorts this year. What do you think that was a product of?
I mean, I think for starts, Deshaun Watson is a phenomenal quarterback. He's very good at his job, but I think getting rid of DeAndre Hopkins gets rid of his wide receiver one. They had Brandon Cooks. He is a really good receiver, but he was getting hurt as well because everyone was coming after him.
So yeah,
Because they did, you know, he was their top threat, so that's who
yeah,
they came
perfect
after.
example. I go back 2 or 3 years ago, go to Pittsburgh, Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, and Juju Smith-Schuster. Antonio Brown was catching all the double teams because he was a legit number one, and Schuster was a 2-3 option, maybe a slot at the time, and he was killing it. And he was killing it because every team they played, number one cornerback was on Antonio Brown. He was playing second and the second and third cornerbacks on those teams, and therefore and he may not have quite been a number one receiver, but he was good enough to be the number three corner, and that's why he looked so good. That's where his arrogance and cockiness came from, and that's why he will probably be dealt during free agency this year because I don't think he is a legit number one receiver in the league. But not to get off topic, um, going back to Deshaun Watson, it looks like now there are several teams that really might be making plays towards his being traded to them. What are your thoughts on his being traded, and how soon do you think it's going to happen? And elaborate.
I would say, 5 teams that would be a good fit for him and a good trade for him, and why they would be a good
Start the
fit.
list.
Miami's going to be my number one, and the trade would be Tua, their cornerback Xavier Howard, and 2 or 3 first-round picks. One reason I think Miami would be a good fit for him and a good way to make this trade happen would be Brian Flores and Nick Caserio, the Texans GM, spent a lot of time together in New England, so they're already, well acquainted, and they know each other, so they probably have talked before and since being in New England, just because you kind of build friendships there in that sense. But and if Houston takes Tua, then they won't have a need to draft a quarterback, and they would be in position with Miami's first-round pick, which is, I believe, the number 3 they got from the Texans. They wouldn't need to have that one for a quarterback, so they would be able to trade with a quarterback needy team that would, they'd be able to get more from it. And so if they do that, they'll be able to basically get more picks of actual players by being able to trade, that number one pick to someone who actually needs a quarterback.
Cornerback that you mentioned in that trade, why do you think he would be also included in that trade?
Well, if they get rid of Xavier Howard, they'll save about, I think it was between $6 and $9 million in their cap space, which would be very helpful in building a contract for Deshaun Watson and making him more affordable if they do acquire him. And ideally, that's someone Houston would want on their team. He led the league in interceptions last year or this past season, and Brian Flores, he's done a really good job both building their defense. So as much as I think he's a key piece, I think he'd be able to work around not having him fairly easy. And so I think it's a win-win for both teams. I mean, it's kind of a lose. Miami probably doesn't want to get rid of him, but Houston needs. Well, they just lost J.J. Watt, so they do need to work on their defense anyway. I mean, they were able to put up points with Deshaun Watson, but they still need help on defense. So it would be you get a quarterback, you get an excellent cornerback, and you get 3 draft picks to do whatever you want. 2 or 3 draft picks, and however that would end up. Also, the most important thing about that is Deshaun Watson actually wants to go there. And with the no trade clause, he's only going to lift it if that's something he wants. So with the GM and Brian Flores being well acquainted, they could make this quick, easy, and quiet, and everyone is happy.
Next on the list for that whole conversation would be, before we go into another team that would on your list that would be your another number one possible destination, it still flies the rumor mill. It still kind of leads headlines that Houston is not going to trade him. Do you think they're going to be forced into backing down from that statement, or do you think that they're just saying that to try to build up what they can get in return?
I mean, I think a little bit of both. Deshaun Watson straight up told them he's willing to sit and he will pay whatever fines. And someone, good with numbers already did the math. It was going to cost him pretty much millions of dollars to miss training camp in every game. And he straight up said, I'm willing to pay what if I'm here, I will sit. And so it's like you're wasting money on this guy when you could get so much for him. Once you've seen the Matt Stafford, Jared Goff trade, that automatically I feel like made Deshaun Watson's value that much more. They know that, and they need a lot of teams to rebuild. They're going to be on a 3 to 5 year rebuild, if not longer, and they got to start somewhere. And getting Deshaun out of there because he doesn't want to be there is probably the first and foremost most important key point to starting a rebuild.